Bailey Zappe? That's who Kevin Stefanski might be backing over Shedeur Sanders. And Nightcap didn't let it slide. Chad Johnson was visibly stunned, questioning how someone with Sanders' upside was being sidelined in favor of a journeyman with limited ceiling. Shannon Sharpe pushed further, saying the Browns aren't just making a bad call, they're actively stunting a young quarterback's development. By refusing to name Shedeur as the clear QB2 behind Dylan Gabriel.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The Browns created yet another quarterback mess, one that feels less like competition and more like a political circus. The reaction was instant and furious. Fans weren't just confused, they were livid. The comment sections turned into a protest zone, with users accusing the Browns of exploiting Sanders for publicity while giving real reps to players with no long-term upside. Sharpe and Ocho's fiery take resonated because it echoed what many already believed, that Cleveland is playing games with a young man's future, and no one inside the building seems willing to step up and fix it. It didn't take long for Nightcap to erupt. The second Kevin Stefanski's quarterback decision, or lack of one, hit the headlines, Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson were already locked in, shaking their heads on set and calling out exactly what everyone else had been too cautious to say. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't patience. This was sabotage. Sharpe didn't mince words. He called it out plain. The Browns had every opportunity to give Shedeur Sanders a clear role, not even as a starter, but just as backup. And instead, they're eyeing Bailey Zappe. Bailey Zappe. That's the guy Stefanski is leaning toward? That's when the whole conversation snapped into focus. This isn't about Shedeur's development. It's not about competition. It's about control. It's about using a name for marketing, keeping a promising quarterback in the building to draw headlines and jerseys, but giving him no real future on the field. And Nightcap laid it all out. Sharpe and Ocho said what fans were already screaming online. The Browns are stringing Shedeur along. No reps, no trade, no release, just silence. Which, when paired with Stefanski's refusal to even make him the number 2, turns that silence into something worse, a statement. A loud, deliberate message that Shedeur isn't part of the plan. And that's where the frustration hit a boiling point. Because if you're not going to use him, why keep him? That's the question everyone was asking. And on Nightcap, Sharpe put it in plain language. The Browns are wasting his career, holding him hostage in a system that clearly has no intention of investing in him, no intention of putting him on the field, and no explanation for why. What made it hit even harder was how quickly the fans rallied behind that. The Nightcap comments weren't just busy, they were on fire. Viewers were outraged, accusing the Browns of disrespect, mismanagement, and worst of all, deliberate sabotage. Comments were blunt. They're using Shedeur for marketing purposes only. This is a chokehold on his career. There's no reason to keep him if you won't play him. Over and over, fans said what the team refuses to admit, that this isn't about football anymore. This is personal. This is organizational dysfunction at its peak. And the wild part? It's not even controversial anymore. Because when two respected former players, especially ones like Shannon and Ocho, who don't hold back, are saying the same thing that fans are, that's when the narrative changes. That's when it goes from speculation to truth. No one's buying the competition line anymore. No one believes Shedeur's not ready. No one thinks Zappe is the better long-term choice. The writing's on the wall, and it's ugly. Shedeur's being held back. On purpose. And here's the part that's hard to ignore. The Browns refuse to explain it. They won't name him QB2. They won't trade him. They won't release him. They just keep him parked, benched, invisible. And that's where the outrage turns into something deeper. Because this isn't just a bad decision. It's a pattern. It's a team once again proving it doesn't know how to handle quarterbacks. A team known for cycling through signal callers like phone chargers, now hoarding a high-potential QB with no plan to use him. Shannon called it disrespectful, and honestly, that's putting it lightly. There's no way around it. Stefanski's move makes no football sense. Bailey Zappe might be serviceable in a pinch, but this is about development. about the future. And if your answer to that future is Bailey Zappe over Shedeur Sanders, then you've already failed the test. Ocho wasn't having it either. His whole reaction, from the body language to the tone, made one thing clear. He sees through the nonsense. He sees exactly what fans are seeing, a franchise fumbling another opportunity and doing it with zero accountability. And that's where Nightcap hit a nerve that hasn't stopped throbbing. Because fans want to believe in Shedeur. They want to believe there's a team out there that will give him a chance. But right now, the Browns are making sure it won't be them. And they're not even pretending otherwise. No statement from Stefanski. No press conference clarity. Just vibes. And those vibes? They reek of fear. Fear of letting Shedeur shine. Fear of the pressure that comes with it. Fear that playing him might expose just how wrong they've been about everything else. So instead, they do nothing. They hide him behind the most underwhelming names on the roster and pretend that's part of the process. It's not. It's a stall tactic. And it's not just bad leadership, it's actively harmful. Shedeur isn't getting reps. He's not getting visibility. He's not even getting a fair shot. And that's how you kill a career, before it even begins. That's why the comments are calling this a chokehold. Because it is. The Browns are squeezing the momentum right out of him, keeping him in this awkward limbo state where he can't play, can't grow, can't leave. And Stefanski, for reasons that have yet to make any real sense, is enabling it. Every day Shedeur spends in that system with no path forward is a day wasted. And every week Stefanski refuses to justify his decisions is another blow to whatever credibility he had left. It's no longer a question of whether Shedeur deserved a chance. That part's answered. The real question is whether the Browns are ever going to let him have one, or if they're going to keep burying him under excuses and media silence until the spotlight fades. But with Sharpe and Ocho on the mic, that spotlight's not fading anytime soon. They've made it clear they're not letting this one go. And fans aren't either. Not when the disrespect is this blatant. Not when it's being called out so publicly. And not when the alternative is pretending like Bailey Zappe is the future of Cleveland football. Let's be serious. The longer this goes on, the worse it looks for Stefanski, for the front office, for the entire Browns organization. Because the league is watching. Players are watching. And if you develop a reputation for holding back talent, good luck convincing anyone to sign with you again. It's not just a football problem anymore. It's a reputation problem. And Nightcap dragging it into the light was the loudest wake-up call yet. So what happens next? Do the Browns finally make a move? Do they give Shedeur a real shot, or trade him to a team that will? Or do they keep pretending this all makes sense while the fan base, the media, and even their own players lose patience? Whatever comes next, one thing's clear. People aren't going quiet. Not Shannon, not Ocho, and definitely not the fans. Let us know how you're feeling in the comments. Should Shedeur demand a trade? Is Stefanski just delaying the inevitable? Or is this yet another chapter in the Browns' never-ending saga of quarterback chaos? Hit subscribe if you're done giving this team the benefit of the doubt, and stick with us. Because as long as this mess is unfolding, you know we're going to keep calling it what it is. Sabotage. Straight up. It's not even a debate. It's a debacle. And every day Kevin Stefanski stays silent, the narrative gets uglier. When your head coach can't bring himself to name Shedeur Sanders, at the very least, the backup, while entertaining Bailey Zappe like he's some sort of locker room savior, people start asking questions. Loud ones. And they're not going away. Because the Browns aren't just mishandling a player, they're dismantling their credibility in real time. Nightcap didn't just poke at this story. They ripped it wide open. Shannon Sharpe didn't hold back. And Chad Ocho Johnson gave him the perfect alley-oop to hammer it home. This wasn't commentary. This was a takedown. The kind that sticks. The kind that shifts public opinion and makes it very, very hard for a franchise to just brush it off with a canned quote and a media-friendly soundbite. The truth is out. Shedeur Sanders isn't being developed. He's being sidelined. And not because he isn't ready, but because the Browns don't want to deal with what comes next if he is. Think about it. If Shedeur goes out there and actually performs, if he shows poise, talent, leadership, and sparks a little fire under that offense, what happens to the delicate quarterback rotation then? What happens to Stefanski's process? It falls apart. And that's exactly why they're avoiding it. This is the kind of organizational fear that leads to years of irrelevance. The type of decision-making rooted not in football, but in politics, in optics, in ego. And right now, that ego is writing checks the Browns' performance can't cash. Sharpe pointed it out. They're not interested in building Shedeur into a QB1. They're interested in building around him, not on the field, but in the marketing department. His name, his image, the Sanders brand. It's all part of the hype machine. But when it's time to actually develop the player, nothing. That's what makes this so different. Because Shedeur isn't just a quarterback, he's a headline. A magnet for cameras, commentary, and clicks. And the Browns know that. Which is why keeping him around while giving him no meaningful role feels less like a mistake and more like a strategy. But here's where it backfires. People aren't stupid. And when fans see a guy getting iced out for no real reason, they respond. That's why the nightcap comments section turned into a full-on revolt. Fans didn't just agree with Sharpe and Ocho, they matched their energy. They used words like career chokehold. They called it insulting. They dragged Stefanski's judgment and demanded accountability. One viewer flat out said what a lot of people were thinking. This isn't football. It's sabotage disguised as coaching. And they're right. This isn't about schemes or reps or readiness. This is about control, power, keeping the spotlight on the coach's narrative instead of the player's potential. And it's exhausting. Ocho put it best when he talked about how it feels as a player to know you're being used for image, not impact. That kind of betrayal hits differently. You walk into a team facility every day knowing you're not part of the real plan. You're just window dressing. It wears on you. And now, Shedeur is stuck in that exact situation. He can't leave. He can't play. He can't grow. He's just existing in football limbo, while less talented QBs leapfrog him with no explanation. That's not just bad coaching. That's toxic. And the more the Browns try to deflect or distract, the louder it gets. Because the truth always finds Mike. And Nightcap handed it the loudest one in the building. Here's the part the Browns front office really doesn't want to admit. If Shedeur Sanders weren't who he is, if he didn't have the Sanders name, the spotlight, the brand, they probably would have cut him already. But they can't. He brings attention, headlines, relevance. And that's worth something until it becomes inconvenient. Until the pressure to play him outweighs the benefits of keeping him quiet. That's where we are now. The tipping point. And you know what? The fans are done waiting for someone to do the right thing. They're not asking for miracles. They're not asking for Shedeur to be crowned QB1 tomorrow. They just want something logical. A path. A plan. A reason why the team's most marketable young talent is behind Bailey Zappe in the conversation. And yes, we're going to keep saying his name because it keeps getting more ridiculous every time. Bailey Zappe. The fact that he is even in the discussion before Shedeur tells you everything you need to know about how skewed the priorities are in Cleveland right now. And if this was just a one-off misstep, maybe people could give Stefanski the benefit of the doubt. But this is yet another quarterback controversy under his watch. Another confusing, poorly communicated, logic-defying shuffle that leaves everyone asking the same thing. How is Kevin Stefanski still employed? That's not a hot take. That's become the standard comment. And not just from trolls, from people who love this team. People who want to believe in the Browns and are just tired of being let down every time a young QB shows promise. At this point, the only thing holding back Shedeur is the team that drafted him. And fans are tired of watching talented players rot on the bench because a head coach is too insecure to handle real competition. What's wild is that if the Browns had a plan, even a bad one, people might have some patience. But right now, they've offered nothing. Not a quote. Not a justification. Not even a basic timeline for how they plan to use Shedeur. And that silence? It's louder than any press conference. That's why the nightcap segment hit so hard. Because it said everything the Browns won't. It cut through the noise, the passive-aggressive depth chart games, the vague development language, and called it what it is, sabotage. No fluff. No filters. Just facts. Sharpe and Ocho didn't break this story. They broke the facade. And now that it's cracked, good luck putting it back together. Because fans aren't waiting for a nice little team statement. They want change. They want clarity. And they want Shedeur somewhere he can actually play football. So the Browns have two options. Give him that chance or let him walk. Anything else is a waste of time and a waste of talent. But knowing this franchise, they'll probably try to stall a little longer. Throw out some media-safe talking points. Hope the storm passes. Spoiler, it won't. Because this story isn't fading. It's gaining momentum. And as long as Shedeur Sanders stays benched while the Browns keep fumbling explanations, that pressure is only going to build. At this point, there's nothing left for Kevin Stefanski to hide behind. Not a development timeline. Not QB room depth. Not some vague talk about earning reps. The game is up. Everyone sees it for what it is. A deliberate decision to sideline Shedeur Sanders for reasons that have nothing to do with football and everything to do with ego, image control, and stubbornness. And Nightcap cracked it wide open. Shannon Sharpe didn't dance around the issue. He called it sabotage, full stop. And that word landed like a bomb in Browns territory, not because it was inflammatory, but because it felt undeniably true. The Browns are holding Shedeur Sanders on a leash, and the longer they pretend it's strategic, the more insulting it gets. You don't bring in a quarterback like Shedeur, a guy with sky-high potential, a massive public profile, and a track record of composure under pressure, only to bury him behind Bailey Zappe. That's not a depth chart. That's a power play. And it's not just Shannon who sees it. Ocho saw it. The fans see it. The entire Nightcap comment section exploded with people who've had enough. This isn't about wanting a shiny new quarterback to start right away. It's about basic respect. About giving a young, talented player a chance. One chance. To compete. To grow. To be treated like an actual part of the team instead of a PR tool collecting dust on the sidelines. That's what fans are furious about, and rightfully so. Because keeping Shedeur on the roster, refusing to trade him, refusing to play him, and refusing to explain why, that's not a developmental plan. That's a hostage situation. He's not just being overlooked. He's being intentionally stalled. And let's be honest, the Bailey Zappe excuse is weak. There's no spark there. No ceiling. No long-term investment. Zappe is, at best, a short-term insurance policy. You don't keep a guy like Shedeur behind him unless you're actively avoiding something. And that something is accountability. Because if Shedeur starts climbing the depth chart, if he starts playing like the player many people believe he is, then the Browns brass, Stefanski included, have to admit they got it wrong. That they mismanaged his timeline. That they wasted valuable reps. That they let politics overrule potential. And let's be real, Stefanski's not built for that kind of self-correction. He's already skating on thin ice with fans. Every quarterback controversy under his leadership has gone sideways. He's shuffled names, buried talent, played favorites, and nothing has stuck. Now here comes Shedeur, a high-profile, high-risk, high-reward player. And Stefanski's default move is to ignore him? Come on. It's not even subtle anymore. And fans are done pretending it is. Every time Shedeur's name comes up, it's surrounded by frustration. Not because people are expecting him to be a day-one superstar, but because he's not even being treated like a player. He's being treated like a problem, a PR asset to manage, a name on a depth chart that the Browns hope stays quiet. And that's where Nightcap delivered the gut punch. Because they said the thing no one inside the building has the guts to say. This is personal. This isn't about football anymore. This is about a coach making sure his system stays intact, even if that means stunting the growth of someone with legitimate promise. Because once Shedeur starts rising, the narrative shifts. It stops being about Stefanski's system and starts being about Shedeur's future. And maybe that's what the Browns can't handle. Maybe they didn't expect Shedeur to come in with this much fan support. Maybe they thought they could slow play his development while milking his name for social media buzz. Maybe they thought fans would just accept another year of quarterback roulette. But they miscalculated. Because this fan base isn't just frustrated, they're angry. And every day Shedeur sits behind Zappe, every week the coaching staff offers no explanation. That anger turns into something worse, resentment. That's when things start to crack. That's when fans stop caring about context and start demanding heads roll. And again, it all circles back to Stefanski. He's the constant in all of this. The common thread in every quarterback controversy the Browns have endured over the last few years. And now, with Shedeur Sanders caught in the crossfire, fans are asking the only question left that matters. Why is he still making these decisions? There's no clear offensive identity, no long-term plan, just quarterback chaos dressed up as flexibility. And now, instead of addressing it, Stefanski is doubling down, offering no clarity, no direction, just vibes, while a quarterback with real potential gets boxed out of his own future. Let's be clear, this isn't just bad coaching. It's organizational malpractice. Shedeur Sanders is not a finished product, but that's the point. He needs reps, real reps, not scout team throwaways or preseason garbage time. He needs to be put in situations where he can succeed or fail and learn. That's how young quarterbacks grow. But right now, the Browns aren't giving him that opportunity. They're giving it to Bailey Zappe. And every time they do, they're telling Shedeur and every fan watching exactly where their priorities lie. Because the Browns aren't just passing over a promising young QB. They're choosing comfort over challenge, familiarity over future. And they're doing it at the expense of a player who deserves more. You can't develop a quarterback you're afraid to play. And you can't expect fans to support a team that refuses to evolve. That's why Nightcap resonated the way it did. Because Shannon and Ocho didn't come in with hot takes, they came in with truth. Unfiltered, unsponsored, uncomfortable truth. The kind you only get from people who've been inside locker rooms and know what it really looks like when a player gets misused. And fans knew it too. That's why the feedback was so instant, so overwhelming. This wasn't just another viral clip. This was validation. Fans weren't overreacting. They were right. And now, the Browns can't hide behind silence. The story's too loud. The backlash too focused. The truth too obvious. They either give Shedeur Sanders a real opportunity, or they admit to the league and the world that they never planned to in the first place. And if that's the case, trade him. Set him free. Let him go to a franchise that actually believes in developing talent instead of collecting it for optics. Because right now, this is a mess of the Browns' own making. And every week they refuse to fix it, the story only grows. So let's talk about it again. Is Stefanski avoiding Shedeur because he's afraid of what success would mean? Is this about control, not competition? And what happens if this franchise once again wastes a quarterback with real upside? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let out. Because clearly no one inside the building is listening, but Nightcap is. And we are, too. Hit subscribe if you're tired of the politics, tired of the excuses, and tired of watching the Browns trip over their own potential. Again and again. This isn't development. It's sabotage. And someone needs to be held accountable. Until then, we'll be here, breaking it all down, one quarterback disaster at a time.